So I've been testing my M1 iPad Air and Apple's 5K Studio display as my full-time daily desk setup. And honestly, I'm pleasantly surprised by how enjoyable this experience actually is. You actually could get away with a setup just like this one, where you only use your iPad as the only computer with the right accessories. But for the select unlucky few people watching this video, there is definitely some things still left to be desired from this experience that may prevent you from wanting to do the switch full time. The first thing that I really love about this setup is how easy it is actually to get it up and running. I insert a single Thunderbolt 4 cable into my studio display into the USB-C port of my iPad Air, and within a split second or so, I'm welcomed to a desktop-like interface that takes up the entire studio display screen in full, beautiful 5K resolution. Colors, contrast, and everything about iPadOS honestly looks fantastic in 5K. And you get direct access to anything you plug into the USB-C ports of the studio display, so I can attach any hard drives or peripherals of my choosing and get direct access to them through the iPad. I should be very clear on one thing though, is that you actually only get external display support with M1 powered iPads. Any other iPad before the M1 models do not support external display support. Just thought I'd put that out there. And the second thing that I actually really like about this setup is the introduction of Stage Manager. For those of you not caught up, Stage Manager is a new way of multitasking on iPadOS, which essentially gives you the ability to have like traditional or almost traditional window management like you'd get on a MacBook and on a Windows computer. Any app you open automatically takes up a defined amount of space on the screen, and all of your apps in the background are going to be now placed on the right-hand side with a maximum of 5 sets of apps on there at any given time. You can drag and drop a new window on your multitasking view from the Stage Manager view, or you can even do the same thing by just dragging and dropping an app icon from the home screen. It's going to pop open a window. You can have 4 apps open on the external display and 4 apps open on the iPad, giving you a total of 8 apps open at the same time between both screens. And from there, once you have all of your apps open, you can resize your windows into these predetermined proportions, and that's sort of where a lot of the controversy comes to play when it comes to Stage Manager. If this isn't your first rodeo of watching a video about Stage Manager, you probably already know about all the complaints that people have just about the fact that you can't have the free will to make the window size exactly the way you want it, like you could on Windows computers or on MacBooks. You're sort of confined to the predetermined proportions that Apple is giving you with an iPadOS. I definitely think though that I'm in the minority. I actually don't mind Stage Manager in its current form. I don't mind the fact that Apple has these predetermined window proportions every time you want to resize something, because even on my MacBook Pro, I was never the kind of person to have all these windows open and have these very specific centimeter dimensions for every window that I opened. It was always just one full screen app open or 2 half screen apps that I snapped to the side. So I kind of always was used to just kind of basic window management, and the iPadOS does that really well. I think it does basic window management very well, and the fact that it gives you predetermined sizing all the time just allows you to very quickly open up the apps you want and get them organized a lot faster in a very proportional way that I actually grew to appreciate. Another feature is worth mentioning as well is the fact that if you do press the 3 dots at the top of a window open, you can turn that app into full screen. You can add another window from any app in the background. You can actually minimize that said app, or you can actually move that window to the iPad screen. A pro tip for people who are looking to mimic a setup like this is actually to not take advantage of display zoom if you are already. It's a feature that increases the amount of information that you can see at once on your display in any given app, making all of the apps appear slightly smaller. And in theory, this actually sounds like a good idea, but in practice, I found that the apps started to get really wonky and they just didn't look right in this new resolution. You'd just be left with a lot of empty space that looks kind of awkward, and a lot of the apps don't really proportion well in this higher resolution state on iPadOS. Instead, if you do want more space, I'd recommend turning off the recent apps to hide the drawer on the right-hand side of your external display so you can use more of the space available on your screen natively. And if I needed to see what app sets are open in the background, I can just open up the app drawer of the background apps and achieve the same thing I could have done on the recent apps view. I just want to take a moment to thank Casetify, who was kind enough to partner with me on this video to showcase their new impact case and screen protector collection for iPads and MacBooks. They come in various beautiful designs, and actually the ones that I have here in my office are my absolute favorites. Like, come on, that camera case from a MacBook honestly looks really cool. Many of these prints and designs you can find for their cases will be at the link below. They have tons of designs for you guys to choose from. These cases feature EcoShock corners on both the iPad and MacBook cases, which absorb a lot of impact if you ever drop your device. The iPad case has an adjustable horizontal stand that allows for multiple angles for convenient viewing experience, and their screen protector is made of durable tempered glass that prevents cracks and scratches while maintaining my iPad's sleek, slim design. On their MacBook case, it features anti-slip grips that are rubberized to ensure stability and security for a good typing experience, and their screen protector for the Mac filters out blue light waves to prevent strain for your eyes from long screen hours. In addition, this screen protector safeguards your privacy as it can black out someone else's view at different angles, so they can't actually see the information on your screen. Both the iPad and MacBook cases are straightforward to install as well. Like, you literally just snap this thing on and off, and it's very easy to do, and applying the screen protector on both the iPad and MacBooks were effortless. Putting the case and screen protector together gives you 360 all-around protection that you'd want for your device, screen, and overall health. Click the link in the description down below to get an automatic 15% discount at checkout. Thank you so much, Casetify, for sponsoring today's video. Okay, so now let's get back to Stage Manager, where I actually wanted to admit something that I didn't admit earlier in the video, and that's the fact that I actually did not like it at first. I was not a fan of the way that Stage Manager translated onto the big external display when you use your iPad. I actually did find that the window resizing was awkward, and it didn't feel natural the way that it felt on a MacBook or a Windows laptop. But I found that over time, as you start to use it more, and I mean, I really use it for weeks, even a couple of months, it starts to grow on you, and you start to really kind of appreciate the fact that there's really quick window resizing available, and it really isn't that bad. Like, it's not perfect, but you definitely get used to it, and I actually kind of like it in some ways, to be honest with you. Overall though, I think from my really long experience using Stage Manager, I think the best way to go about it is to organize your apps based on which ones you want to have on screen at any given time. And another pro tip, use an Apple trackpad if you have one or you have the means to buy one, as I actually find it to be more pleasant to use than a regular mouse with the setup, as you can easily use the swipe gestures to go from one set of apps to the next. And another thing that I've actually sort of noticed to this experience for a long time was that there were a few iPad apps that I prefer to use over their desktop counterparts on a Windows or MacBook. For example, Spotify on iPad is actually more fun and easier to use, in my opinion, than the desktop version of Spotify on my MacBook Pro. And I also started to see over time that a lot of the iPad native apps, some of them actually really were desktop class. Like, they really did translate well into this big external display desktop UI, and it almost fooled me at sometimes thinking that I'm working on a MacBook Pro. For example, Grammarly is more or less the exact same experience on my iPad as it is on my MacBook. I really cannot tell the difference. The same is true for my Safari browsing experience. I get access to the exact same sets of extensions that I use on my MacBook on the iPad. And then the really cool thing is that when you mix these desktop class apps with iPad apps that feel more mobile, you get this really cool harmony that you just don't quite get on MacBooks. It just opens up these really unique multitasking possibilities with desktop apps and mobile app combos on your screen at the same time, working together in a very harmonious way that I actually really appreciate. And also, let's not forget that once we're done working at a desk, it's as simple as unplugging the iPad from my studio display and I'm off to the races. I can really easily pull up exactly what I was working on the studio display very instantly on my iPad. Okay, so as I said earlier in this video, this whole setup is not perfect. I wish it was, but it's not. And one of the standout things that I've noticed that still continues to this day is the consistent app crashes that happen at least once a day, where all my apps will just close and I have to reopen them whenever I'm in external display mode of my iPad. I wouldn't necessarily call this annoying because it really only happens once or twice in an entire day. So within a 10-hour or 8-hour workday, that's not too many times, but when it happens almost every day, you notice, and it's something that I feel like I should bring up in this video. Another really weird quirk I found is that when you plug into the iPad, you actually don't really get much control over the speaker output of any audio coming through your device. You have to use the one that is built into your display. You actually can't change it at all on your iPad. In my case, of course, the 5K Studio Display speakers are amazing, and I have no complaints about the iPad wanting to use those speakers. But for other people, like 99% of people who probably don't have a studio display, let's be honest here, monitor speakers suck, and the fact that you're going to be stuck with those speakers on your monitor kind of sucks, and it would be cool if you can manipulate where the audio goes with this whole setup. Also, another weird quirk is that I can only screen record on the iPad. I'm actually not able to do any screen recording off the external display itself, which is kind of annoying. And if you turn off the iPad display, it also turns off the monitor. There is no way that you can do this whole setup with your iPad screen turned off. It must be turned on, which is a little bit disappointing. And also another weird thing is that if you press the top right corner of the studio display to try to get access to the control center, nothing pops up. It only shows up on the iPad. It's a lot of weird things like that I found to kind of subtract from the experience a little bit. But overall, I would still say that I'm pretty happy with it, and I actually kind of enjoy it in a lot of ways over the last couple of weeks and months that I've been kind of piloting this whole iPad only setup. I still firmly believe that for many of you guys who only do simple computing or basic multitasking on your computer, you could totally get away with an iPad only setup with a keyboard, mouse, and a monitor. And kind of a byproduct of this that I've noticed from my experience as well is that because iPad OS feels more limiting compared to MacBooks, I actually feel less distracted because I'm kind of forced to really make use of only 1 or 2 apps on iPad at any given time, or else it just starts to feel a little bit cluttered and messy for my taste. Whereas on my MacBook Pro, I can kind of just have tons of things open and go down a rabbit hole and kind of become less productive. So I've found productivity through the restraints of iPad OS because it is a lot easier to use when you're only focusing on a couple apps at a time. And also what I found is that if you are a professional, like if you are looking to use Final Cut Pro or Adobe suite of apps like Photoshop, Lightroom, and any kind of heavy program, this setup is just not gonna work. That's actually why I still own a MacBook Pro, because I need those apps to create the things I want to create online. And I just, there isn't still a good solution to do that on iPad, even though they're powered by M1 and M2, even though they're as powerful as they are today. The creation tools that are available on iPad they don't match up at all compared to how great they are on MacBook Pro. So professionals, you can't get away with this setup, but for basic, everyday computing type people, this setup works like a dream. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to drop a like down below, subscribe if you're brand new to my channel, and I'll catch all of you guys in the next one. Peace.